Second game of week 2 of the Six Nations 2021 is Scotland and Wales. Is this the game of the round, or is it France and Ireland, or is it even England and Italy? The fact that both these teams won last week makes me think maybe this is the game of the round. Could be a bit of a turning point for both of these teams. Scotland, they said, have not gotten off to a 2-2 start in the Six Nations since I think it was the Five Nations. And Wales under Wayne Pivac have not had a great deal of success, but they certainly got a win last week. So one of these teams is going to be looking a lot better if they can go 2 from 2. Is it going to be Scotland? Is it going to be Wales? We'll go over the predictions in a tick. I'll put the lineups in the description, but I'll go over them briefly, the recent history and whatnot. And you guys can let me know your thoughts on how you think it's going to go as well. Scotland, I thought they got out a bit easier when I looked at the injury updates yesterday, but since yesterday and today, when some of the squad, when the squads have been named, apparently there's more injuries out than what we initially thought with Scotland. Redpath, Maitland, and Richie are all out for Scotland. So, pretty unfortunate news. Redpath had a pretty good debut last week. Maitland was very assured on the wing, and Richie, his partnership with Watson is a pretty famous one, so it's disappointing not to see him in the lineup. So they've brought in a few guys, but the forward pack is for the most part looking the same. You've still got Sutherland, Turner, and Fagerson, and they may fancy themselves. Like, I know Wyn Jones was man of the match last week for Wales, and Wales' scrum was good. But remember, Ireland was scrumming with a man down for the majority of the game, so it might be one where you look at it and go, maybe Wales should have done better than they did. I don't know. Scotland's scrum is certainly a bit of a weapon. It got England's scrum at least to concede a couple of penalties, although England did get one back on them. So I still think they'll be pretty strong at scrum time. The Scots, Cummings and Gray are your two locks. Blade Thomson is your man who comes in the number 6 jersey. Still haven't really seen the best of him at international level, but he's only had a handful of chances. Good game for him to maybe step up. He's good at line-out time. Hopefully he can add some value around the park as well. Hamish Watson was just a bit of a demon last week, and he will continue on. And Matt Fagerson's number 8. I'm glad to see a bit of consistency with that. So it's only the injury-enforced change which sees Blade Thomson have to step up. Ali Price and Finn Russell are your 9-10 combo, same as last week, so more of the same, please. Lang comes in at 12. Chris Harris retains his spot at 13. Duhan van der Merwe is still there on the left wing, and he is a guy you probably need to tackle around his legs if he's going to be running at you. Tell that to, was it Daly, who tried to go around his shoulders? Not a good idea. And Darcy Graham, who you probably could go a bit higher on because he's a wee bit smaller, but he's got some fleet feet. Darcy Graham's on the right wing, so a bit of an excitement machine player to have there as well. Big man, little man. Got to love that combo. And Stuart Hogg, who was just phenomenal last week with his kicking, with his running. He's there at fullback. So Cherry, Kebble, and Nell are on the bench alongside Richie Gray, Graham, Steele, Jaco, Walt, and Hugh Jones. So pretty much the bench is unchanged. It's just the injury-enforced changes that have seen guys come from outside the 23 straight into the starting lineup. Now for Wales, I wish it was that straightforward. Holy moly, I did their updates on injuries, and it was Lydiate, it was Johnny Williams, it was Tompkins was in doubt, but North was cleared. Nah, North's out. North's out. Lydiate's out. Amos is out. Navidi's out. Johnny Williams is out. Thomas Williams is out. Goodness gracious me, man. It's a tough one. We'll see. It's going to be a test of how things go. They did say, though, that there's still like 800 plus caps in the squad, so it's not like it's light on experience, but the midfield is looking rather inexperienced. Wyn Jones, Ken Owens, Thomas Francis are the front row. It's the same as last week. Adam Bird and Alun Wyn Jones, same second rower, so it's the same type 5. Wainwright comes in at number 6 in the place of Lydiate/Navidi. Tipperick and Falatau continue on at 7 and 8, and they pulled up some good numbers last week, especially in the tackle department. Gareth Davies steps up from the bench to take over the 9 jersey. Hardy comes in as the bench replacement. Biggar's still there at 10. Tompkins steps up from the bench to start at 12. Owen Watkins in at 13, so it's a whole new midfield. Rees-Zammit and Liam Williams, who's come in after serving his suspension. Left wing, right wing, you got inexperienced guy and ultra experienced British and Irish Lion. And Leigh Halfpenny's there at fullback as well. So if Stuart Hogg is going to kick the ball to them all day long, with the likes of Halfpenny and Liam Williams there, you would think Wales should be pretty secure at the back, but you do never know. If he finds the space, he finds the space. The bench, Elliot D, who didn't even get on last week, which is maddening for me. Rodri Jones and Leon Brown are the front row replacement. Rollins is still there. James Botham's come in. I'm very pleased to see him get a go. Hopefully he doesn't have to come on after like 12 minutes like Navidi did last week, but you know he's going to be just running for however long he's on the field for. Kieran Hardy, like I mentioned, Sheedy, and Willis Halaholo comes in as well, so he'll be on his debut if he can get a cap. Wayne Pivac was talking up his Pro 14 stats about how he's breaking all kinds of tackles or beating defenders or something in the Pro 14, so he's going to be a proper attacking threat. Keep in mind, Scotland's on an extra day's rest because they played Saturday and Wales had to play Sunday, so it's a short turnaround for Wales. Pivac mentioned they've only had one full day of training. All the rest has kind of been eased off, bit of mental prep he mentioned, so there's maybe one little bit of extra advantage for Scotland. They are at home, albeit without a crowd, so that shouldn't be as much of a factor. Recent record between the teams is tight. 3 wins to Wales, 2 wins to Scotland, and the most recent one was an away win for Scotland over in Wales. Not at Cardiff like normal, but it was at Llanelli. So, but mentally, that's got to be giving the Scottish guys a whole bunch of confidence. They've won at Twickenham, they've won in Wales for the first time in a long time. So it's like they're on the verge of being that proper, genuine threat, and not just the team who, you know, gets 1 or 2 wins, like one big win every Six Nations kind of thing. Can taste it, but anyway, we'll see. Wales may have something to say about that. Average score between the teams over the last 5 games is 19-14 to Wales. So, like I mentioned, it is pretty tight. The last time they played at Murrayfield, though, was actually a Welsh win, 18-11 in that 2019 season. The predictions. Rugby Forecast has got, that's the algorithm, has got Scotland by 1. The bookies have got Scotland by 5. So likely a combination of last week's result, home advantage, and all the Welsh injuries, probably tipping it in Scotland's favour for this one. Gregor Townsend talked a lot about converting their chances into points, which is something that maybe they were not. It's a legit point, right? They weren't that clinical last week. I mean, they did enough. You can't really be critical of a performance where you get a first away win over England since 1983. But they could certainly have had it done a wee bit earlier. They won 5 turnovers in that game, which is an area that Ireland did very well as well against Wales. So it might be an area that Scotland looked to target Wales because they had a bit of a chink in their armour last week there, as well as their line-out. Scotland's line-out was at 100%, whereas Wales' line-out struggled a wee bit, so that might be another one where Scotland will look to maybe get some cheap turnover ball. For Wales, Tipuric, Alun Wyn-Jones, Faletau, Owens, I think Navidi as well, but he's not playing. They all had 20-plus tackles in that game, so they were defensively very sound. It was like the Wales of old, seeing such a defensive shift. But keep in mind, Hogg had the most broken tackles. So you got the biggest tacklers up against the most broken tackles. So what's that? Unstoppable force, irresistible force up against unbreakable object? I don't know. You know what I mean? It's going to be a clash. So let's hope it's an exciting one. The game is on at 4:45 GMT, which makes it 5:45 in the morning over here in New Zealand, that's a doable hour. I think I will definitely get up to watch this one live. I forgot to mention Wales' time in the opposition 22 for that game last week was 1 minute and 3 seconds, and yet they still scored 21 points. Pretty impressive. Their defence was 90.41 in tackles. So like I mentioned, Wales of old, pretty impressive stuff. But yeah, we'll see. It should be a pretty interesting game. Like I mentioned, it's one where you're not quite sure who to root for. I mean, who to root for, but like who to back. It's a very hard one to pick. As I mentioned, there's a few factors in Scotland's favour in terms of the injuries to Wales, the fact that they're at home, the fact that they're on a seemingly pretty good run, if you can call that after one game. But Wales, one of not the commentators, one of the journalists mentioned it, that when their back's up against the wall, tends to be when they pull out some of their biggest performances. So we will see. You guys let me know who you're backing to get this one done. Do you think Wales away from home can get Wayne Pivac's job a little bit more secure? Or do you think Scotland will finally have a proper, genuine contending season for the Six Nations Championship? You guys let me know your thoughts. Talk to you again soon. See you later. Remember, guys, if you are looking to watch this week's Six Nations games or you want to watch last week's games, you can do so on ITV or BBC's iPlayer for free if you're in the UK. If you're outside the UK like me, the best way to get that done is with a VPN. I am on ExpressVPN here. You can see I'm connected to one of the servers in the UK, so I'm able to jump on ITV's hub, browse to rugby. This is the upcoming game. That one is England against Italy. That's on this Saturday. And this is last week's game, England-Scotland. So you can see it's all listed here. They've got it for, I don't know, like another 20 odd days. You can watch the ones on ITV. And for BBC iPlayer, it's pretty much the same deal. They got a split. Half the games are on one, half the games are on the other. They really seem to be promoting RuPaul's Drag Race a lot, though. But, you know, categories go into sport, and then this is last week's game, Wales against Ireland, right? So, yeah, it's pretty straightforward. Scotland, Wales is on the BBC. England and Italy is on ITV. Like I said, I'll put the link in the description for Express. That's the one that I've been using. 30-day money-back guarantee. 3 months free if you sign up for a year, all that kind of jazz. Give it a crack, and yeah, watch some rugby this weekend, guys. Talk to you again soon. See you later.